Tonight, the 11-year-old drag queen that stole America's progressive hearts is found dancing at a gay bar with adult males throwing dollar bills at him. Imagine my shock. I'm Roaming Millennial, and you're watching Uncensored. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. In this episode, I'm afraid we once again dive into the dark underbelly of our culture. On this show, we often talk about concepts like left versus right, or big government versus small government, or maybe even individualism versus collectivism. But not today. Today, I don't know how else to describe this topic other than good versus depravity. Some might even say evil, and I know that sounds hyperbolic, but I honestly don't know how else to put it. If you keep up with this crazy world of social degeneracy that we live in, you'll unfortunately likely have heard of Desmond is Amazing. If you haven't, it's a very disturbing, very sad story. You see, Desmond is a 10-year-old drag queen. Yeah, you heard that right. Roll clip.
This is Desmond Napoles, more commonly known as Desmond is Amazing. He's a 10-year-old drag kid and an icon in the LGBTQ community.
Desmond is amazing!
Desmond has gotten a lot of well-deserved attention recently because A, he's really young, and B, because he's so fierce.
I came out of the closet when I was only 3.
You know what I was doing at 3? I was drooling on people at 3.
Now, I need you all to understand here that although I'm about to really dig into how disgusting this is, none of any of this is Desmond's fault. None of my criticisms are directed at this little boy who, by the way, seems like a sweetie. I don't feel anything but concern for this kid. This kid is just that, a kid. He was 10 years old at the time, definitely not old enough to understand the consequences or meanings of his actions. And what makes this so disgusting is that he's being exploited and, yes, I would say abused by his parents in a very public way. And instead of trying to help this kid, what are we as a society doing? We're giving a platform and audience to his abuse. The first problem here, because trust me, there are many, is the issue surrounding Desmond's sexuality. And let me just say, the fact that a 10-year-old, now 11-year-old sexuality is even a matter of public discussion at all is gross. It is, but I can't not address it under the circumstances. According to the webpage LifeSite, Desmond's mother says that, quote, Desmond came out of the closet when he was born, and the child has apparently been part of Pride Parade since 2015 when he was 8. I'm going to be really careful about what I say next because honestly, it's 2018 and I have to be, but of course, good parents will love their children regardless of their sexuality, as they should. But there is a difference between accepting your child for who they are in that respect and manipulating your child's sexuality into something that your political and social ideology finds pleasing and ensures your status is elevated as someone who is tolerant and virtuous as a parent. What? Are you suggesting his parents, particularly his mother, would groom and try to mold her own son's sexuality into something that would get her attention and signal her virtue as a progressive? Yeah, that is exactly what I'm suggesting. Watch the news. Unfortunately, there's no shortage of people doing screwed up things to their children out there, and this is just another example of that. And don't get me wrong, the over-sexualization of a kid, which is exactly what this is, would be wrong in the straight direction as well. If parents were so obsessed and constantly talking about how straight their son was and made him march in the straight pride parade since he was 8 and talked about how they knew he was straight since he was born, that would be weird too. And to anyone that would say, how can these parents be manipulating his sexuality? We're born with our sexualities. Well, science disagrees. Don't get me wrong, there is absolutely a genetic component to sexuality, but studies on identical twins have revealed things like nurture and experience also come into play. The development of human sexuality is an entire field of study. If you're interested, I encourage you to read up on it, but basically the idea that these parents were just passive actors and their son developing into, as his website describes, quote, an awarded LGBTQ advocate and outspoken gay youth is suspect. Highly suspect. The second issue here is that we have a child practicing drag, because yeah, maybe Desmond was born gay, but he definitely wasn't born knowing about and having access to drag. And look, I'm not gonna hate on drag. Those men love makeup, so do I. And if they're all adults, then they can dress however they want, and I really do hope they're happy. However, drag is not for children. A lot of drag outfits and performances are sexualized, so no, it's not appropriate for young children to watch, let alone participate in drag. Don't believe me? Check it out.
They started making out in front of me. That's when I told them that they had to leave. Get out. But they took all the food from me except the apple on the tree. It was forbidden. God, are you kidding?
But there's a story y'all don't know. My draw was fast and his was slow. It really was his time to go. So I went bang bang, bang bang. These double barrels pumped him full of lead.
That kind of thing is common in drag performances, and having a 10-year-old boy dress up in drag absolutely is sexualizing him in the same way that those horrific performances of female toddlers in beauty pageants twerking to Lady Gaga are also sexualizing them. Let your kids be kids, people. It's not that hard. Barney, Rugrats, Hot Wheels, there are plenty of ways to entertain your children that don't involve dressing them up provocatively. All that essentially was the argument that a lot of people, not even just conservatives, just people in general who are against tarting up 10-year-old boys, made when Desmond's story first got national attention. But according to Desmond's defenders, these people were being just way too sensitive and puritanical. None of this is about sex, they insisted. There's nothing inherently sexual about what Desmond is doing. Well, I hate to say I told you so, I really do hate it in this situation, but as the Daily Wire's Amanda Prestigiacomo reported this week, 11-year-old boy dressed in drag dances at gay bar gets dollar bills thrown at him. Yeah, that's Desmond. And if that headline doesn't make you angry enough, these sordid details of the story are even worse. Quote, on December 1st, an 11-year-old boy dressed in drag danced on stage in a sexual manner at a gay bar in Brooklyn, New York, called $3 Bill. The child, Desmond, was dressed as a Gwen Stefani lookalike, full drag makeup, a blonde wig, and crop top included, as he bounced around on stage to No Doubt's Like a Girl and collected dollar bills from male adults viewing the number. And as one Yelp reviewer commented about the bar while leaving a 1-star review, I left after seeing a child dance on stage for money at nighttime. This was on Saturday night, and I have been feeling disturbed ever since. Now, footage and photos of this performance were circulating on social media, and the Daily Wire and other sites have confirmed their existence and content, but most places are refusing to publish or link to this because what happened was frankly inappropriate and exploitative. Period. So thank you to them for having some standards about what they will and will not publish. And you know what? Part of me with this whole thing at first really did want to give these parents the benefit of the doubt. To say, hey, sure, they're definitely misguided, but maybe they're at least trying to, in their minds, do what is best for their son and be supportive of him. But no, being supportive and accepting of your son does not necessitate taking him to gay pride parades where, regardless of how you feel about gay pride as a concept, there is a hypersexualized environment. It doesn't require you trotting him out and prancing him around in age-inappropriate clothing and makeup on national television, and it sure as hell doesn't mean you need to book him as a night performer at gay bars. These parents have pimped out their own son to pedophilic degeneracy and are clearly making money from it. Case in point, they're planning on launching a business enterprise based on their son's dystopic stage persona called House of Amazing, which they describe on Instagram as, quote, the first and only drag house for kids. Is anyone else feeling lately like we need a good crusade? Just like a good, solid crusading to just do away with all the craziness? Because as you would think novel a concept as a child drag queen should be, it turns out Desmond isn't the only one. He's not even the OG drag kid. Before Desmond is amazing, there was Lactatia, who's even younger, by the way. Here's a clip of that came out last year.
Lactatia is the deviest diva you could ever think of.
When he was about 2, he came to me with Mr. Potato Head earrings and asked me to put makeup on him. So we did a little drag photo shoot. And yeah, anytime he wanted makeup, I just put some on him. When he was about 7, we started watching RuPaul's Drag Race. It's so overwhelming. You feel overwhelmed with pride that your child is, expressing themselves and showing the world, and it's being so well received, and she's pretty good at what she does.
Yeah, you say your child is expressing himself by doing this, yet you're the one, his mother, putting on his makeup, doing his hair, and turning the TV on to RuPaul's Drag Race, so I don't know about that. And I know what a lot of you guys are thinking, that as terrible and disturbing as what has happened to these children is, that at least you can be sure it won't happen to your children, that you'll be able to shield them from all this madness. I'm sorry to be the one to inform you of this, but that's not how this works. On the surface, it kind of seems like the blight of progressivism on the West should die out eventually, right? I mean, these are these same people who like to complain that we're overpopulated and so you shouldn't have kids, but they also somehow find enough resources to welcome in hundreds of thousands of migrants. Just weird. But really, so few of these people are actually having heterosexual sex, since it's just so passe, that it should stand to reason that eventually this toxic ideology should die out, since its supporters will have no offspring to pass it on to. However, like all supervillains, the cult of progressivism of social justice has a larger, more insidious master plan. You see, these people may not in general have much of an interest in passing on their way of life to their own children, but they're more than happy to sink their claws into your children. And yes, I am of course referring to the left's control of educational institutions. Concerning drag specifically, it turns out that Desmond's parents aren't the only ones who think that drag should be for everybody. All ages. In fact, one Colorado middle school invited the drag queen Jessica Lahore to speak at one of their literacy events. That's right, Jessica Lahore. You heard me. Then there was the Detroit Children's Story Session that invited Miss Raven Divine Cassadine to read to kids. And guys, I'm not saying that drag queens are like bad people who should be kept away from children or anything like that. As people, I'm sure they're lovely, but their drag personas specifically, no, are not kid-friendly. And look, I recently made a video and mentioned how much I love the Victoria's Secret fashion show. But if Kendall Jenner were to show up oiled up in lingerie, stilettos, and angel wings to read to some 5-year-olds, that would also be inappropriate. Beyond drag queens, though, on this show we've covered before how the progressive agenda in schools is so keen to indoctrinate children into challenging sexual and gender norms. There is, of course, the school in the UK that made 6-year-old students write gay love letters, which we covered on a previous episode, and if anyone out there is in doubt that the progressive movement has turned transgender and gender-bending identities into a fad, there is actually one liberal school in the UK, a single school, that has 76 students that identify as trans. What a happy coincidence. Here's a clip of Based on Gender Piers Morgan, much better than Cucked on Gun Rights Piers Morgan, discussing this phenomenon with a trans rights activist.
Why should they be encouraged to do this when it's clearly,
because
for
there's
many
nothing
of
wrong
them,
with being questioning about...
nobody's going to persuade me that 76 kids at one school in Brighton woke up one day and decided to be
Well, who said that
gender
they woke
fluid?
up one day? Who says that it's not something that happens overnight? It's something...
But where does this end? Do we end up with literally nobody in the future identifying as male and female?
Well,
What does that do?
maybe.
You genuinely think 76 kids in one school are transgender?
I'm saying that it's a
Or
possibility.
do you think it's possible? Is it possible?
I say
They've all
it's a
just
possibility.
they've all just latched on to a fad that is
No.
getting more and more attention, and they are basically having their minds turned.
I get a lot of people, trust me, a lot of people, who complain that I should just let people live their lives however they want, believe that gender is what they feel. Why can't I just live and let live? Well, kids, your access to other people's kids and your ability to make your own kids are why we're not just going to let you promote deviancy under the guise of progressivism. But that's it for now. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and a reminder that I am on Minds.com. All of my new videos are mirrored on there, so if you're on that platform, please subscribe to me at Lauren Chen. I'll have a link in the description, and I'll see you next time.